Welcome back to my Stories of Scale podcast, hosted by me, Jonathan Herps. In the podcast, I chat with business owners and CEOs of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and the aspirations for their companies and themselves. Today, I'm speaking to Jon Hui, founder and CEO of Easy Truck Rental. G'day, John.
G'day, Jonathan. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome. It's great to talk to you. I'm going to fess up to start with and say that John and I have been friends for 30 years.
30 plus. Yeah, I think there's a couple extra added onto there.
Yeah, that's right. And the year before last, John was a member of my mastermind group. So it's great to have you on, John.
No, excellent. Thank you.
So listen, tell me a bit about your origin story quickly, key moments that got you to today, and a little bit about your business.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the origin story, me personally always had the itch, I guess is probably the word to describe it, to do my thing, do my own thing. I've got a well-developed risk muscle, so naturally I do gravitate towards the riskier end of business in terms of entrepreneurial pursuits. I think that's also important. I don't think you could stick at it for as long as I have stuck at it, with all the setbacks and all the shortcomings that you experience, unless you do have that risk muscle well developed, or at least you feel as though that's how you should be. This isn't my first rodeo, as they say, but in terms of the easy business or the easy truck rental business, yeah, it started well before that. It's like a lot of things, looked at the market, figured that, hey, there was an opportunity, knew a little bit about the industry. And really the old KISS principle, I thought, okay, let's look for something that's relatively straightforward, simple, what I call staple. In other words, everybody wants it, but unconventionally, or at least unnecessarily complicated, bewilderingly. And that's what I saw in essentially the rental industry. I didn't quite understand why it had to be so complicated to do the simplest of things. So it really started there. So I started really thinking deeply about it. Why is it so complicated? It is a big and deep market. There is a lot of opportunity. It is a mature market in some sectors. I then settled on that I saw were changing in general society. Density, property density, people were living in smaller dwellings. I then came upon a stat that said 80% of people in Australia actually move themselves, believe it or not. 20% of Australians actually use removalists. So I found that quite compelling. I thought, wow, we're a big enough population, and that seemed like a big number to me. And then I looked at, of course, what aspects or what parts of the industry were both under-resourced, underutilized, and that's when I chanced on removal trucks. So it all started that way, looking from the outside in, the macro into the micro. Saw a big opportunity, figured it was relatively underpinned in terms of demographic change, high density living, population on the move, the cost difference between doing things yourself, the egalitarian approach, which Australians are predisposed to, and then obviously utilizing people to do things for you, which obviously there was a significant difference in cost. A lot of those things have contributed to the idea. So then I thought, I got to get into this game. And that's how it all started.
I've forgotten the date, but I remember you taking the delivery of your first trucks and negotiating for the first site. When was that?
July, August 22.
Great. And you took delivery of how many trucks on day one?
I think it was two. Yeah, two trucks. And yeah, it was a very long day. There was nothing to do really. But yeah, we started with two trucks. August 22 was when we officially opened. I think we've been working through it up until that time, yeah.
One site. Where are we now?
We've still got that main location in Virginia. Our model is to rent from storage centers. So I think we're at about 15 locations now, including Sydney. It's been pretty rapid growth in two and a bit years. There's been a lot of things we've had.
How many vehicles do you have now?
60.
60.
Yeah.
A little bit of rapid growth.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, all in the same asset class. So we've really focused heavily on that.
Okay. So what are you working on now? Yeah, what exciting projects or goals?
Yeah. There's probably three major things. One is obviously increasing value in our brand through brand extensions. So going in and verticals, going into removals, delivery operations, finding many more ways to utilize our assets, businesses that aren't necessarily correlated, so that if one's quiet, the other one's doing okay, and away we go to maintain our utilization. Expanding into Sydney. I'll be in fact going to Sydney next week again to obviously expand our storage center locations, which is how we distribute our product. and then obviously looking to try and expand down into Melbourne. So really at this point in our growth phase, it's expansion, it's growth, it's a critical mass industry, much like finance and various other things where you've got to get big or get out. So we've got to get to a point where we've got sufficient distribution, sufficient availability in terms of locations, and that's how we mitigate our risk. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you see growth in the next couple of years? As in size?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think growth for us will very much follow or mirror, I guess, the growth in density. So effectively, we're quite correlated with the storage center industry. Hence why I chose to rent trucks from storage centers, because in some respects, involving myself with storage centers as I have is also a great way to keep my finger on the pulse. It's a bit like if you own a small strip shop, it's a good idea to have a look at what the major Westfield shopping centers are doing, right? Because, of course, there's a lot of research that goes into that. I look at the storage center operations, I look at where they open, what they do, and then, of course, I try and essentially align myself with that because we share the same customers. So people who are utilizing storage centers are people who live in situations where there's density, so not enough space for all their stuff, as it were, but also to small businesses and the change in micro business. So I think I heard a stat, 30 to 40, I think it's almost 40% now of all storage center units are actually occupied by small businesses, right? That's quite an interesting stat, isn't it? That might have come from Kennards. I'm pretty sure it might have come from there. There are large organizations like Australia Post, for example, now operates from storage centers. So a lot of businesses do this because obviously it allows for their nimbleness, nimble sort of movement. Shopify stores, people who distribute things, companies who have just-in-time inventory, this is where it's all going. It's one thing to store those things in storage centers, and of course, those things have to be moved. So I try and align myself with them. I try and get close to them because it makes sense for us to do that. But also, too, I look at where there's a lot of rezoning. So Sydney is an interesting market, an expensive market, a complicated market to navigate. They're trying to fit as many dwellings as they can on the same square meter. What I do is look at it and go, a lot of those individuals are going to use our business. They're going to want to move themselves because they don't have a lot of things to move. And so therefore, I want to make sure that I'm in and amongst those individuals and in those areas. Okay. So if I can get onto a storage center, the market research is done for me.
Great.
That's why I did that.
Okay. Maybe if we can switch tack a bit now. What are your daily habits and routines, and what does a typical day look like for you? And what habits do you credit with your success?
I get up pretty early. Usually I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I have been doing that now for quite a number of years. I tend to get up early. I get a lot because it's alone time. There's not much going on. It allows me to think a lot. So I spend the first couple of hours really just thinking about what's important, what I need to prioritize. I review decisions I've made and how I can tweak them. I think about my team. What should I then set as the agenda for the day, for the week, for the month? What sort of important information do I need to partake in, convey? I get up in the morning early and I spend a lot of time thinking. Then I'll go either take the dogs for a walk. So I need to break that morning, have coffee with my lovely wife. Obviously, we discuss the day. So I do try is the operative word, make an effort to demarcate the day in that way. And then usually, I'm involved in a lot of meetings. I assist the team where I can because we are still a small growing business. So there's still a bit of hands-on. I spend a lot of time asking questions of my team. Why are things happening this way? I set agendas. I create structure for people. So today, in fact, there was an operational meeting where I had to create some structure around training plans. And then I hand over to my management team to obviously implement those things. And so I find myself at this mid stage of the business. In the early days, I was sleeves up and pretty much doing everything, right? Now I find myself transitioning. I spend a lot of time thinking, a lot of time planning, a lot of time communicating. I would say 80% of my day is effective communication, whether it's up, down, sideways, cold calling, negotiating with partners, people we need to work with, selling, presenting, internal communication, reassuring my team they're on the right track, making sure they are on the right track, keeping them focused. I would say 80% of my day is pretty much spent communicating to keep everything going in the right direction.
Okay. A difficult question. How do you balance your personal life with the demands of leadership and of running a business?
Yeah, that's a really good one, actually. How do I balance it?
I didn't design that one specifically.
Yeah, look, I think balance is the wrong word for me. I think it's difficult to balance. I guess it depends on how you look at it, right? Work is omnipresent with me. I've tried to fight it in the past and it doesn't work. I guess I'm always online, so to speak, mentally. What I do though is, and it's been difficult to do, there will be occasions where I will switch off. I can only really do that if I feel confident that I've set the foundation with the team, right? So I've put in place the business systems. In a given period of time, I know that nothing really can go wrong unless someone makes an effort to. So, where I have those in place, and I do spend a lot of time trying to implement systems so that I don't have to be integral to the operation. And where that happens, and it's happening more and more these days, I am then making an effort to switch off. And there have been a couple of occasions where I've actually left my phone behind and spent time with Jan, my wife, where we've gone and done things. And that's been a recent thing. And it's been extremely productive and helpful for me because whilst I like to work and I enjoy working, and like to people who don't see life through my lens, I'm a workaholic. To others who probably, to the very few people that I know that do see life through my lens, I'm driven, ambitious, and studious. So it doesn't affect me negatively. I like it, but I do have to compartmentalize.
Yeah. And it's an interesting one, John, because you and I have spoken about this a lot. As I'm strongly of the view that most entrepreneurs are like you and I. We think about our business all the time. It's not an employee thing. But I'm strongly of the view, and I definitely mentor and coach my clients along the lines of really taking true free time out to actually rest your brain. Like I find most of my best thinking is done walking by the water, sailing, or in the shower, interesting enough. And that's when the good ideas flow. And the good ideas particularly flow when I've stepped back from the day-to-day of the business. And you and I have spoken a lot about that. And that's why I was thrilled with the Bali trip, as a recent Bali holiday with you and Jan, because it gave you time to get away from the.
I think you're right. And
can I quote you on that? I've got a recording of it.
In theory, that obviously makes sense. Obviously, it's difficult to argue with that. What my experience has been, and whether this is the experience of others, I don't know. Because the funny thing about being an entrepreneur is you spend a lot of time with yourself, either by design because you're just so busy all the time, or because it's not like you haven't got the time for it. Like you're always trying to operate at a high level. I remember when I used to run I used to be a private banker many moons ago, right? And someone did ask me at one point, what was it like to spend the bulk of your time around multi-millionaires, which is what I was doing. And I said the thing about it is that they have a very clear understanding of the value of time. So there's never any small talk with them. There's never any shooting the breeze, right? At least in my experience. There was always strategic and tactical discussion about something. There was always an angle in one way. And that seemed to be how they live their life. And so I think the thing is, what I learned is that if you're dead set serious about fast growth, success, because you're going to hit a million obstacles, and I do all the time, you got to be all in, right? It's bloody hard to work a 9 to 5 and try and be very successful, exceptionally successful. But you got to decide that's what you want, because of course it comes with a price, right? I spent the first 2 years basically obsessively working 7 days a week to get this business out of the ground, to battle through. And by the way, in saying all of this, I wasn't alone. I had a partner in Ben Steele and others. I'm no egomaniac that thinks like I know it all. I always work with people. And both he and I were in the same boat, right? So effectively, we worked fastidiously, obsessively. And I would say to anybody that asks, having been there, there's no way out. There's no other way to do it. It just simply isn't. And I tell you why, because there's no cheer squad with entrepreneurs. Yeah, there's no cheer squad. There's always a million people that want to protect you. Hey, don't do this, don't do that, don't do it. There's a million people that will tell you how it's impossible to achieve that, or it's too hard, or it's too risky, this is your constant companion. This is what you come up against all the time. It's crazy, it's nuts. And I don't know if it's something peculiar with Australia, but this is what you come up against, right? So you either got to get good with being on your own and with your own thoughts, and or you really just struggle. You really just struggle. You just don't make it, right? And I really believe that, like religious belief, right? That is what it takes, because I lived through it last 2.5 years. Then there's imposter syndrome. I don't deserve to be, I don't deserve to have this. I don't deserve. So you're continually battling that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of stepping back and doing what I'm doing now, which is what I'm doing, it's not easy. It's really difficult because it's hard to take your finger off the pulse because you think someone's going to have a coronary heart attack. But you're right. What I then found out was if you push too hard on the pulse, eventually you stop the blood flow, right? And I suffered from that too.
Yeah.
Diminishing return. The more I persisted, the more I the more I wanted to drive the agenda, actually the worse it got. But the smartest thing I did, and partly because obviously of the discussions you and I had, there was an epiphany that came about as a result of having someone look at it from the outside in that understood, was that growth and expansion and scaling and all these things was going to happen and was going to be real for me the less involved I was in the mechanics of it.
That's a really interesting point you've just made. Yeah, I've just come off another interview actually with one of my clients, and Helder Klemp from DNX Solutions, really worth having a listen to it. And we've just come out of a 2-day quarterly advanced workshop that I do with his leadership team every quarter. And one of the key messages he passed to his leadership team was that he's really enjoying making bits of his business boring. And boring being that it just operates without him having to be involved every minute of the day. And by doing that, and he was talking about the fact like marketing in his business is boring. And this is a business, it's a technology solutions business. Since I've been with them, we've grown from about 12 staff to almost 70, like it's really scaling. But marketing is boring. His finance function is now boring. In other words, it just happens. Sales is not boring at the moment. And his next focus is to work on that to make it boring so that he can get, he can almost guarantee that he's got the lead flow. And it's a really interesting point you make.
Yeah, it is, because I think in fact, today I was just thinking and reflecting, as obviously as we're going into this discussion today, you hear I read all these books, and I read a lot, and I listen to a lot of audio books, and a lot of it seems theoretical until you live the experience. And here are a couple of things which business books and Scale Up, because I've read that book, talk about. And you always look at it objectively, and you always look at it dispassionately, like, yeah, that sounds very theoretical and sounds a little bit too good to be true and natural. And then you have the actual experience. And one of them is, of course, the whole experience of get people that are smarter than you, committed, all these sort of things, that genuinely have that internal, as Stephen Covey says, the internal drive, and then get out of their way. And I've heard this said many times and then I did it, right? And it wasn't easy because you just feel like, what am I going to do with myself all day? You do it, and here's what it requires. It requires a gigantic suppression of one's ego, right? Because it feels weird to not so much admit, but to make it your mission as a leader to be the quiet, reflective thinker in the corner of the room, and to let people, because I guess that's the suppression of ego piece, right? Ben, who's my partner, right? CPA qualified, extremely competent individual. I was lucky in the sense that I knew very early in the piece, I understand financials like the next guy. I can do all of that, right? But it wasn't that I wasn't interested in. Yeah, it's boring and dry as hell, but it wasn't that. It was that I just didn't see how, if I invested an extra amount of my time in that, how could I then invest the same amount of time that was otherwise required in this? Simple maths. There's just not that. Getting him on board, allowing Ben to do what Ben does really well, and just saying, look, mate, that's your area. He and I work in a collaborative approach, which it seems to work really well now, right? So I don't have direct authority over Ben by design. I choose not to. And similarly, he doesn't veto. So what we do, of course, is we communicate very effectively and frequently now, about what our
What
shared
you say
goals are.
now, because I know there were
Yeah,
issues early on.
there were. And you and I spoke about that,
Hmm.
and your guidance on that was very helpful, Jonathan. So basically, I took your advice and I thought, okay, how do I implement this? And a lot of it was introspection. Okay, you got to get over yourself, right? Which I did. And then I thought, okay, what am I really trying to achieve here? My legacy, my sense of achievement, all of this sort of stuff is not anything peripheral. It's not anything outward. Hey, I don't want to be on TV type thing as being the entrepreneur of the year or none of that. That's for a start. I'm 53 years old, so probably never going to happen anyway. I was having a conversation with Cliff, my newest employee today, right? Clifford. And I asked him, I said, mate, what do you like about working here? Because you've been here for a little while now. And you know what he said? He said, I feel safe. And he's a guy who has had a pretty tough life, Clifford, right? And his first thing that came out of his mouth was, I feel safe.
Cool.
That was quite poignant. I thought, geez, why do he said that? Normally people say, I got a regular job and I got money and blah, blah, blah. No, I just feel safe. And I was thinking about culture,
So what a huge compliment that is.
Yeah, it is. And I thought to myself, why does he feel safe? And I think it was because I can't remember who said it. It might have been Wayne. No, it wasn't Wayne Bennett. One of these footy coaches said this to me. He goes, the important thing is to play the ball, not the man. And that's always been my approach. Play the ball, not the man. What's the issue? How do we address the issue? How do we do this, that, and the other? So yeah, am I having an existential crisis now that the business is humming along nicely and getting to where it needs to go? Probably.
Can I summarize two key
Yeah.
you've highlighted there? The first one is who, not how.
Yeah.
To really successfully build and scale a business, it's about identifying the who's that can complement you. And Ben is a classic example of that. The other one is focusing on your unique ability. So your unique ability, and let's give an example of this podcast. My unique ability in my life is mentoring, coaching, strategic advisor to people like you, founders, CEOs, business owners who are looking to scale their business. The mentoring and coaching is a key piece. The second piece for me is developing the IP, the simple tools to help you scale your business. And the third one is sharing and sharing widely, hence this podcast. Now, the podcast, like miracles, there's a brand new microphone that actually gives better sound, but what do I know about editing a podcast? I could go out and use an app called Descript and learn how to use it and learn how to remove all the ums and ahs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do I? No. I've got a team of about 7 who are based here and in the Philippines who do all of the editing, all of the promoting. All I do is turn up, ask questions and have a great conversation, which I enjoy enormously. Ability, delegate the rest to people who are better. They're 2 key lessons you've just highlighted. So thank you.
Yeah. I can say to obviously those who are watching this, and I've learned the hard way, trust me, and I've earned my stripes, as they say. You just simply can't scale unless you delegate. You just can't. You can't. I've tried every other way. I've tried to do it all myself, and I sent myself crazy. I've tried, and there is that statement, diminishing return. It's so true. The harder you try, the less you're effective. The less effective you are, you diminish your business in so much as the culture. People become reliant on you. It's not so much they become suspicious; they just become reliant. Oh, he'll do it. He'll do it. He'll do it. As I said to one of my staff today, I was having a one-on-one. I said, look, at the end of the day, and he was a member of staff in the Philippines, and he said, look, I'm concerned naturally about making mistakes and all sort of thing. I don't want to let you down. And I was quite pleased that he said it that way. I don't want to let you down. But I said, look, at the end of the day, you're still a human being. Let's not forget that. We'll provide you with all the tools and techniques and everything else, right? But you're still going to make mistakes, right? Because you're just human, right? So all I'm concerned about is the intent, right? Yeah. Did you give it a fair go? Did you follow? Did you do all the things? And you know what? It just didn't work out. You got sideswiped. Shit happens, as they say. Whatever the issue was, you know what? I'm playing the ball, not the man. Fine. Okay. You know what? That's all that matters, right? And what I've learned in terms of culture, which is really I've come to really, as the brand grew and as the brand Easy developed a lot of value, which it does now have a lot of value in it, right? Because, it does, because we know this from Google, actually. It's one of the top 3 organic search terms, believe it or not, people typing in our actual brand, is that people, they need to feel safe. They just need breathing space. They need breathing space, right? And I've taken the attitude that, you know what, I can provide the infrastructure, the scaffolding, right? But I got to get you to really build it. So, for example, I don't script people. I need you to say this like this, right? I'm just saying, look, here are the intentions. Here are the objectives. Here's what we're trying to achieve, right? Here are the little waypoints, to use a sailing term. Here are the little waypoints we need to obviously meet. As long as you get through those, right? You know what? You're a gregarious, vivacious individual, right? And you're going to say it in very flowery language, and you're going to talk too much, and you're going to do all this sort of thing, and people are going to love you for it because you've got a beautiful personality. Go ahead and do it. Yeah. And then one of my other staff members, you're a very reserved, quiet, soft-spoken person. You know what? Go ahead and do it. Yeah. I don't want to know about it. I just want you to know that you can do it, but just get through the waypoints, get through the milestones, because otherwise you just simply won't be effective. And that's important as well, because you need to feel like you're achieving. Yeah. I need to feel like I'm achieving. The thing is, we were going through our KPIs today, Ben and I, and they're the hard metrics, things we've got to hit the numbers so the board meeting doesn't turn into a bloodbath. But there's also all the other stuff, and all the softy stuff, which is culture and feelings and how do people feel and all that. I said, look, at the end of the day, if everyone's miserable, forget about the hard metrics. Never going to happen. That's just like trying to get up Mount Everest in roller skates, right? Never going to happen, right? Because we're still dealing with humans, right? So at the end of the day, we've got to spend as much time, energy, and effort on being available to our very small team. We haven't got a lot of people, right? Maybe 15, 20 now, but there aren't a lot of people. We've got to make ourselves available, and we've got to listen, right? Because at the end of the day, if there just isn't the get up in the morning and punch the air and go, you know what, I love being part of this team, and I'm just going to get out there and see if I can kick some goals. The hard metrics are a lag indicator.
Exactly. No, it's exactly right. Can I make a point? We're not a big team. 20 staff puts you in the top 0.4% of companies in Australia. Okay. There we go. Hey, I'm going to bring us back to the questions, because the problem you and I both have is we both love to talk. Tell me about the best advice you've ever received. Could be personal or business. And who gave it?
Yeah, I got the advice sometime when I was going in my 20s around what was that say? The best you'll ever be is the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. So that was bloody good advice. Mm-hmm. My mother gave me advice when I was young about reliance and stoicism. And she said, unless you know something different, no one comes to the rescue. Okay, she had a hard life. And I guess what that taught me was the old Confucian principle, which is improve oneself. And that creates the magnetic field in which others. I've always believed that. And those are probably 2 pieces of advice I've received, which have really guided me. I can't think of anything else that immediately comes to mind. So there was something about letting go. It might have been you. I don't know. I can't remember. Somebody told me that the more you let go, the more you hold on. Something along those lines. I never could understand that until now. And it relates to value, the value you create. So the more you hold on is the more value you create in your organization. And it's bloody hard to get your head around that initially, especially when you're in it. But there is no other way to scale unless you do it. I am absolutely convinced that it's impossible. It is impossible because you, the head of the snake, as it were, you just basically fall over in a heap. You just fall over. And as soon as you do, because you've created a culture of reliance, everything else just cascades. So, yeah, that's a learning. That's something that I've learned. But they're the 2 pieces of advice, yeah.
Well, that leads perfectly into the next question, which was, what's your biggest learning as a business owner? So you probably answered that.
Yeah, I think so. No free lunch.
Okay. Can I, running on from that, must have designed these questions well. So my next question is, what's the most important characteristic of a great leadership team?
A great leadership team or a great leader?
Leadership team.
Team. Okay. I think a leadership team. Okay. I think a great leadership team is one where each individual has room to breathe, has air to breathe, has a sense of ownership, knows that they can fail and wear the consequence of it, and feels great about that. Knows that they can achieve, but not feel as though they did so to accommodate or to make up for any shortcomings with anyone else. When Mark, for example, is our operations GM, when he has a win, first thing he wants to do is tell us about it. Ben, same, me, same. So that's usually a telltale sign of a great leadership team where we almost get giddy to tell each other we've had a win. And I don't even think, because sometimes we don't go, hey, great, well done, you're the greatest thing to ever. No, sometimes we go, okay, and that's enough, because we just honestly feel like we've got our own little area. We know exactly what we're supposed to do. Operations, fleet, maintenance, all that kind of thing. Mark, that's your baby, mate. I'm going to leave you to do it. Make it work. Make it work for me. Make it work for us. Ben, find me the money. Sort it all out. Get all that sort of sorted out. I'll go out and create all the opportunities. I'll create the growth. And it works. No one feels like, hey, you know what? You're dropping the ball. I'm driving it. I think that's a good leadership team, because that energy rubs off on the team.
And it's fascinating. If you listen to yourself, it's extraordinary how you've grown as a leader in the last year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Particularly based on some of those hard conversations we've had at different times.
Yeah. Look, I'll give you the credit in that a lot of this I would never have come to realize myself.
Thank you.
I'll tell you why. Because in the early piece, I was an egomaniac like the rest of them. I really did think that I was destined for greatness. Delusionally so, in some respects. But what did that do? It just got me up every morning at 4:00 in the morning, and I just kept going day after day, and I just wouldn't give up, and I wouldn't give up, and I wouldn't give up. So that's the proverbial burning the candle at both ends. It's difficult because, and I've known you for a long time, so what does that mean? It means that I listen carefully and intently to what you say to me, because I don't have that suspicion of who is this guy, right? What's his angle? What's his agenda? What's the hardest thing that I had to do was listen. I hear a lot of stuff, like every day, but listening was difficult for me. It wasn't a natural thing.
No man is an island. No man is an island, John. I've got to tell you.
No, it was a learned skill, and it's something that I got to continue. I got to do what they call professional training every year. Financial planners, I got to do every year. I got to do my refresher courses, get my PC accreditation, my listening accreditation. Hard work, man. But when you do it, it's a relief. It's just a relief.
Okay.
It just shit happens. Like you think, oh wow, man, I just feel great. I'm outside myself for the first time in a long time. I think I can make decisions now. I can say things with confidence. I feel like I'm making the right decisions. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not emotional about things as much as I was. And I think that makes you a good leader.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Listening. So what resources or tools do you recommend? Books, podcasts, tools, things people should check out?
Listen, I think starting to listen to your staff. I do. I'm curious to know. And it's not just about, hey, tell me about your job. Tell me about your life. I'm really curious, right? So I'm a curious individual. So yeah, I listen to podcasts. I communicate a lot with people. Podcasts are good because I just don't have time to read. Too busy. But podcasts are good because I spend a lot of time in vehicles, so I just run them all day, and they're really good. I listen to history a lot. So I listen to those podcasts on history because history teaches me a lot about psychology, why people do things they do, why shit happens, right? Why stuff happens. But yeah, listening is, for me, look, I tend to be quite tactical in listening sometimes too. I'll be negotiating a new deal, like the service station transaction I've just done recently, where I put a truck on it. And I'm intently listening to what the franchisee of that's trying to figure an angle out, which probably is not the best thing. That's how I am. So I think there's two types of listenings. There's listening because you really want to know people deeply for its own sake. And then there's listening because it's pretty damn difficult to make smart decisions, tactical decisions, position yourself in the right spot, unless you truly understand what drives that individual. I do a lot of that with finance companies, with potential partners, even with customers who are negotiating. That's probably how I would sum up listening.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll just finish on one point on that, is that, because this is one thing that I learned lately, is that a lot of people say, oh, listening is just listen. But you know how I know someone's listening to me is the quality of the response.
Yeah.
Did they take the time to articulate in a way which seemed to be coherent, which seemed to be comprehensive? Or did they just pay lip service? say things which are platitudes or which really are off topic or whatever. Right? So I think that's the other thing too. Did they answer the question? Maybe I didn't. I guess that's pretty much how it works.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So last question. Any
Sure.
last parting words of advice for business owners looking to grow and scale their business? What would you
Yeah.
like them to focus on?
Wake up every morning and ask, what the am I doing? Average out the advice you get. Average out the advice you get because you're going to get a lot of it. You got two types of business owners, right? The ones that won't ask anybody what they think of anything, highway or the highway. And then you're going to get people who are just going to be way too cathartic. Maybe that's me. Hey, what do you think? 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 Neither are necessarily particularly bad in of themselves. They have limitations. I think if you're the latter, which is probably the healthier one to be, to ask and to communicate, average out the advice you get, because you're going to get everything from, mate, go for gold, roll the dice, do everything, just go hard, go big, go home, right down to, oh my God, what are you doing? Go get a job. It's too damn hard to discount any individual person's advice. It's just too hard. You got to think too much about it. Just average it out. So if you're getting more people tell you it's a good idea than not, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
If you're going to go down that road.
Good
That's
advice.
my advice. Yeah.
Good advice. Thank you. I'm going to put all your contact details in the show notes, but essentially large operating area in Brisbane, in Sydney now. My listeners are business owners who their teams would use you. So I'd highly recommend.
Yeah. But easy. There's a reason I called it easy, right? So it's not a sexy business. And it's a last minute transactional thing you need it. Why is it got to be so damn hard to get your hands on one? Why can't you just ring up, get it done, get going? So that's the reason to call us. It's just bloody easy.
Excellent. Jon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
See you soon.